cadre that we have will not allow us to do what it is that we need to do. That's a determining factor all the time. And so we struggled along for many years. In terms, I'm speaking specifically now to African People's Solidarity Committee. Before we finally got on the right trajectory. And that was partially as a consequence of Comrade Penny Hess having determined that, nope, I'm not just supposed to be here taking notes, but it does mean something what it is that we are trying to do. And she made a leap forward that helped us to carry the entire organization forward. When we met and pulled together the African People's Solidarity Committee, it was at a time where the African Revolution in this country had been decisively defeated. Militarily, it had been defeated, and that set up the terms for ideological assault that came. The bourgeoisie proper could not attack us and could not defeat us ideologically. But they came at us militarily. They assassinated people all over the place. It was during an era of crisis of imperialism where assassination had become sort of the order of the day. The Kennedys were assassinated by elements from the ruling class. King and Malcolm were assassinated by elements from the ruling class. I mean, you were not surprised to look and read a newspaper and see that. But it was the death of the crisis of imperialism that you saw this kind of thing happening. Comrade Penny mentioned the shooting in Arizona seems to allude to the deepening of the crisis in this country. And not just because somebody got killed, but in this instance, this woman's a politician. She's a member of the government. Shot her, shot a federal judge, and shot anybody else who got in the way. That's a part of the crisis. And so the thing that we've been involved in is trying to build a movement, and starting from that juncture where our revolution had been defeated, people had been murdered, scores, at least scores of people were locked up in prison. Many of them are still in prison today, and I don't take that lightly. And none of us should take it lightly that Sundiata Acoli is locked up in prison, and other political prisoners who fought for the liberation of our people, and Assata Shakur is leading a haunted life even in Cuba while she's in exile. You shouldn't take that lightly either. I'm offended every time I hear some left movement or organization that's talking about some liberal, that's talking about some dissident in China. I don't want to hear about a damn dissident in China who couldn't attend a Nobel Peace laureate meeting someplace where they're handing out peace prizes to people like Obama. If Obama sets the standards for who should achieve a peace prize, then why the hell should anybody be upset because somebody can't get from China to accept the peace prize? If Obama sets the standards, then we know what the person in China must stand for them to want him there. Isn't that true? So we've got these people even today, from that period, who are in prison. I was in prison on a regular basis. I was in and out of prison on a regular basis at that time. There was a revolutionary period in this country, and this government was determined to put it down. And the fact is, when we started this trajectory, we were young people. Had no history, no science about revolution as such. We were learning. It was on-the-job training. Didn't have advantage of any of the kind of stuff that we have done subsequent, or any of the stuff that I have written subsequent to that. I was looking for those writings when I was doing that. It was a difficult period. And we had a period where all of the liberals, I traveled to California, I never forget, because there was this one relatively well-known organization at the time that bragged about the fact that it was buying printing presses to send to African revolutionaries who were trying to make a struggle in Namibia. I made a trip to their office in California. At the time, it was in Oakland, California. I said, look, there's a revolution afoot here. We can use a printing press, any damn thing that you got to help us make this revolution. They looked at me like they thought I was crazy. And it wasn't only they who did this. There were other forces that had no respect for the integrity of a revolutionary movement of African people right here in this country. Because what we were supposed to be about was somehow finding a way to join with America, either in its imperialist state, that is obvious to everybody, or in the state of what it was going to be once the white workers, quote unquote, under the leadership of the Ivy League school students who were leading it, right? After the white workers came to power, then perhaps things would be better for us. We would want to be a part of that. But the notion that somehow that African people who are oppressed in this country, in this day, at this time, want to be free and on our own was ridiculous to them. They had their own theory about what the hell I should want. They said the fact that I'm talking about Africa meant that somehow I have become hopeless. Somebody kidnaps you, takes you thousands of miles away from your culture and everything, and starves you, brutalizes you, rape you, take away your history, reduce you to nothing, and the reason you don't want to be there with them is because you feel hopeless. That it's not logical for you to want to be back. It's not logical for you to want to be self-determining and self-governing. Why is that? They didn't tell the Vietnamese that the reason you're fighting to be free is because you feel hopeless, that you don't want to be with white people. Why me? It has something to do with our relationship and the deep psychological connections and ideological assumptions that's associated with that. It was an incredible period. And our leaders were being killed all around us. We were going to prison. You know, right here in this city. There was a young man, his name was Andre Shellman, who was arrested for a $10 robbery of groceries out of a house. He was in Jomo at the time. And he actually didn't do it. But there was a sister who apparently did it, and he simply took the fall for that. And he went before a judge. And the judge said to him in an open courtroom, this was not some Kafkaesque situation where nobody knew what the hell was going on. He said in an open courtroom to him that if I think that you believe what Joe Waller believes, which is what they called me at the time, I'm going to give you everything I can. He didn't say if I believe you're guilty. He didn't say if I think that you hurt somebody while in the process of committing. He said if I think you think what he thinks. And what did Joe Waller think? That African people had an absolute right to be free and self-determining. That imperialism and capitalism, rotten social system that has no value, no redeeming values at all. And if you believe that, then you get every damn thing I can give him here. What did he want to give him? He gave him 10 years in prison for that. That's the normal way it happens. But guess what? Because it was an African radical, even the white people who read about it in the newspaper and who sat in the courtroom couldn't see what happened. Because that was normal. What happened? So these were conditions, and they were terrible and brutal conditions that we experienced. And we had no resources at all. We went to orange groves and picked oranges collectively to make money to pay the rent in the collective where we were staying, or to pass out the flyers, or to do the work that we needed to do. At other times in Atlanta, Georgia, we lived in a collective where literally, when we went out to do the work in the community, I'm talking about revolutionary work. When we went out to do the work in the community, now how we left the house, the door wasn't even on the hinges. Do you understand? You took the door off, and then you leaned it back on the thing to give the appearance of it being secure while you went to work. Remember, a sister came looking for us and scared her to death. She knocked on the door, and the damn door fell in. We had offices where the people would come and and turn the water off because we didn't have no money to pay the water bill. They turn it off, and as soon as they leave, we turn it back on. We had to function like that. We functioned almost underground, never was on the grid. I don't mean we were literally underground, but we didn't have resources. We lived in collectives. Two people might be getting welfare or food stamps, and the rest of us lived off that. One person go get a job, or the rest of us lived off that and made the work happen. It was very difficult, and our objective was not to get an Uhuru house, not to get a damn building. Buildings don't make revolution. Our objective was to make revolution and to get the resources that would allow us to make revolution. That's what we were about then. That's what we're about now. So that's how it was when we met the forces who came into African People's Solidarity Committee. But these were forces who were buying printing presses for people in Namibia, they said. These were forces who committed some kind of solidarity groups. I never forget meeting the American Indian Solidarity Movement folk. And what they call solidarity work, literally, they were learning how to make Indian baskets. And that was being in solidarity, you know, like with the so-called Indians. And it was just an incredible situation. And the arrogance of the white left, who would tell us that you don't have any issue, like somehow you are bourgeois this or bourgeois that, if you talk about national liberation, if you talk about our being an independent people. They said there is no such thing as a nation of African people or black people everywhere. They said all the nations have been formed and consolidated in the world with the advent of capitalism. So the question of nations it's not even an issue anymore. So you running around here talking about self-determination, wanting your own nation, etc., that something is wrong with you, some bourgeois aspirations that you have. That what you have to do is join in this revolution under the leadership of the working class. And then maybe, so you'll have the right to self-determination, because that's what Stalin said in 1928 or something like that. You have the right to self-determination, and maybe you can have you can have self-determination after the workers go to power. And that was extraordinary for any number of reasons. They didn't just say it about us. They told the Puerto Ricans, you don't have a right to have a so-called Puerto Rican independence, that you have to join the Communist Party of the USA and fight for the power of workers. And the workers, after the consequence of that, you become free. They struggled with the Mexicans who lived here around the same issues. This was the line that was coming from them. And these were our friends. And then you had, the liberals, the other liberals, I should say, who would tell us things like, well, we can't support you because you're not pacifists. Or as Malcolm X used to say, masochists. Right? That you believe in violence. Hell yeah, I believe in violence because it's real. See, violence, yes, I believe in it. If you don't believe in it, because something is wrong with you, because it's happening all around you. It's not like Santa Claus. Violence is real. And there is a difference between reactionary violence and revolutionary violence. And reactionary violence infects the planet Earth. And most of the people on the planet suffer from reactionary violence. And the only way this violence will end, and all violence, will be as a consequence of revolutionary violence, which will free the people from reactionary violence. Such hypocrisy. And I say this without any problem, because they never disbelieved in violence enough to say, since everything we got came as a consequence of violence, whoop, I'm giving it back. Never believed it that much. Okay, there's a limit. If it's that damn